What to do when someone cheats or hurts you. Zen and Buddhist teachings. The unseen wounds of betrayal. Betrayal is one of the most profound emotional wounds a person can experience. It shakes our very foundation, making us question not only the person who hurt us but also our own worth. The moment we realize someone we trusted has deceived us, an avalanche of emotions engulfs us: rage, sorrow, disbelief, and sometimes even self-blame. Why did they do this? Were we not enough? Could we have prevented it? These questions loop endlessly in our minds. The pain does not always fade with time, it festers, sometimes shaping our future relationships and perceptions of trust. But why does betrayal cut so deeply? Because our minds are wired for attachment, conditioned to seek loyalty and fairness. When someone breaks that trust, it feels like our world is collapsing. Yet, despite its intensity, suffering is not inevitable. There is a way to transcend it completely. Chapter 1. 1.1 Buddhist Perspective. The root of suffering. Buddhism teaches that suffering, dukkha, does not arise from external events but from our internal reactions to them. It is not betrayal, loss, or hardship that wounds us deeply. It is our resistance to these experiences, our unwillingness to accept reality as it is. The more we cling to our desires and expectations, the more we suffer when they are unmet. The Buddha identified three primary sources of suffering: craving, tanha; aversion, dosa; and delusion, moha. Craving arises when we grasp for things to be a certain way. Whether it is love, security, or success, aversion occurs when we reject or resist what is happening, wishing things were different. Delusion is our ignorance of the impermanent and interdependent nature of all things. Together, these three poisons fuel the cycle of suffering. 1.2 The nature of resistance and acceptance. When someone betrays or hurts us, our natural reaction is to resist the pain, to replay the event in our minds, to dwell in anger or sadness, and to wish it had never happened. However, this resistance only prolongs our suffering. True peace comes not from avoiding or suppressing emotions but from seeing them clearly and letting them pass. This does not mean we must become passive or indifferent. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the understanding that life is impermanent, that people act from their own conditioning, and that clinging to resentment only deepens our pain. When we accept reality as it is, we free ourselves from the emotional chains that keep us trapped in suffering. 1.3 Transforming suffering through mindfulness. Mindfulness, sati, is a core Buddhist practice that helps us recognize suffering without being consumed by it. When we experience pain, mindfulness allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions with detachment, without judgment. Instead of saying, "This betrayal has ruined me," we learn to say, "This is pain arising. This is anger. This is sadness. Like all things, this too shall pass." Through mindfulness, we see that emotions are temporary. They come and go like waves on the ocean. When we hold on to them, we create suffering. When we observe them with awareness, they lose their power over us. 1.4 The role of compassion in healing. The Buddhist path is not just about letting go but also about cultivating compassion, karuna, and loving kindness, metta. When we are hurt, our instinct is to seek revenge or hold on to resentment. However, true healing comes when we replace anger with understanding. People act from their own ignorance, fears, and wounds. Recognizing this does not excuse harmful actions, but it allows us to see that their actions are a reflection of their own suffering, not our worth. When we cultivate compassion, we free ourselves from hatred and open the door to inner peace. Practicing loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana, can help us transform our pain. We begin by generating kindness toward ourselves, then extending it to others, even those who have hurt us. Instead of fueling resentment, we silently wish for all beings to be free from suffering. Over time, this practice softens the heart and dissolves the grip of pain. 1.5 What should we do when we are hurt? When someone cheats, betrays, or harms us, Buddhism offers a path that leads away from suffering. 1. Acknowledge the pain. Do not suppress your emotions, but observe them mindfully. Recognize that the pain is real but also impermanent. 2. Accept reality as it is. Wishing things were different will only prolong suffering. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means seeing things clearly without resistance. 3. Let go of resentment. Holding on to anger only deepens our suffering. By releasing resentment, we free ourselves from emotional bondage. 4. Practice compassion. Understand that people act from their own suffering and ignorance. Wishing them well does not mean condoning their actions but freeing ourselves from hatred. 5. Cultivate mindfulness. Stay present and observe your thoughts without becoming attached to them. Mindfulness allows emotions to arise and pass naturally. 6. Redirect your energy. Instead of focusing on the harm done to you, use your experience as an opportunity for growth, wisdom, and deeper self-understanding. The path to liberation. Suffering is inevitable, but how we respond to it determines whether we remain trapped in pain or find liberation. The Buddhist teachings remind us that suffering is not an external force but a mental state that we have the power to transform. Through mindfulness, acceptance, and compassion, we can transcend suffering and experience true peace. Chapter 2. 2.1 The Silent Response, a Zen Parable. In a quiet monastery, a devoted student lived under the guidance of a wise master. He was known for his kindness, honesty, and dedication to learning. However, one day, a jealous fellow student spread false rumors about him, claiming he had stolen from the monastery's treasury. Soon, whispers filled the air, and the devoted student found himself judged and ostracized. Heartbroken, he sought the master's advice. "Master, they have wronged me. My name is stained. What should I do?" The master looked at him calmly and replied, "Do nothing." Shocked, the student protested, "But if I do nothing, the lie will become truth. I will always be seen as a thief." The master smiled. "Tell me, if the wind blows dust into the sky, do you chase the dust to bring it back down, or do you simply wait for it to settle?" The student hesitated. "If you chase the dust, you only spread it further. If you remain still, the dust will settle on its own. The truth does not need defense, it simply exists. Lies will fade with time, but truth remains." Still, anger burned within the student. How could he accept such injustice? That night, as he sat in meditation, the jealous student approached him, guilt weighing on his face. "I do not know why," he admitted, "but I feel guilty. You did not retaliate, yet I see the weight of my own actions. I have dishonored myself." The next morning, the jealous student stood before the monastery and confessed. The truth was revealed, and the devoted student was restored to honor. He bowed before his master and said, "Master, you were right. The dust settled on its own." The master smiled, "Always." 2.2 The Deeper Meaning of Silence. The lesson of this Zen parable is profound. Often, in life, we encounter false accusations, misunderstandings, and gossip. Our instinct is to defend ourselves, to argue, to prove our innocence. Yet, in doing so, we may only entangle ourselves further in the cycle of conflict. The Buddha teaches that silence, patience, and wisdom are sometimes the most powerful responses. Silence does not mean submission. It is a deliberate act of strength. When we choose not to react with anger or defensiveness, we allow the natural course of truth to unfold. Lies are like waves in a pond. If left undisturbed, they will dissipate on their own. When we respond with rage or retaliation, we create more ripples, prolonging the disturbance. 2.3 Acceptance and non-attachment. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is non-attachment. We suffer when we cling too tightly to our reputations, our identities, or the opinions of others. The student in the parable struggled not only with the false accusations but with his attachment to how he was perceived. True inner peace arises when we let go of the need for external validation. The wise master understood that reality is not shaped by rumors or temporary judgment, but by the ultimate truth that time will reveal. By practicing non-attachment, we learn to accept both praise and blame with equanimity. 2.4 Practicing mindfulness in adversity. When faced with falsehoods, we can follow these steps to cultivate mindfulness and resilience. 1. Observe. Do not react. Recognize the situation without immediate reaction. Emotions may surge, but mindfulness allows us to step back and witness them without being consumed. 2. Trust in time and truth. Lies cannot stand indefinitely. The truth has a way of emerging, just as dust eventually settles. 3. Cultivate inner peace. Focus on what is within your control, your actions, thoughts, and state of mind. Do not let external circumstances dictate your inner well-being. 4. Practice loving kindness. Even towards those who wrong us, we can extend compassion. The jealous student in the parable ultimately realized his own wrongdoing not because he was confronted, but because he saw the unwavering dignity of the devoted student. The path to liberation. By choosing silence and patience, we are not ignoring injustice, we are transcending it. The devoted student did not need to fight for his reputation. His virtue spoke for itself. In the same way, when we walk the path of wisdom and mindfulness, we become unshaken by the temporary storms of life. The dust will settle, always. Chapter 3. The Power of Doing Nothing. At first glance, doing nothing may seem like passivity, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful responses to betrayal. It means letting go of battles that drain us. It means trusting that truth does not need to be forced. It will reveal itself in time. True power lies in restraint, in understanding that external events do not control our inner state unless we allow them to. This philosophy is deeply rooted in Buddhist teachings, where attachment to emotions like anger and revenge only leads to suffering. By choosing inaction, we do not surrender to wrongdoing, rather, we align ourselves with the natural flow of truth and justice. 1. It breaks the cycle of suffering. When we react with anger or revenge, we become part of the same negativity that hurt us. We fuel the very fire we wish to extinguish. In Buddhism, this is known as samsara, the cycle of suffering perpetuated by our own actions and reactions. By refusing to engage in retaliation, we break this cycle, allowing peace to emerge instead of further conflict. 2. It preserves inner peace. Carrying resentment is like holding fire in our own hands. We are the ones who get burned. Our pain grows when we cling to it, allowing it to fester within us. When we let go, we free ourselves from torment, practicing the Buddhist principle of non-attachment. Instead of being enslaved by emotions, we learn to observe them, acknowledge them, and ultimately release them without letting them define us. 3. It forces the wrongdoer to face themselves. When we retaliate, we give the wrongdoer an excuse to justify their actions. But when we remain silent, they are left alone with their guilt. Their own mind becomes their judge. Buddhist teachings emphasize that karma is self-sustaining. Our actions shape our own destiny. Without an external target to project their justifications upon, the wrongdoer must eventually confront their own conscience. 4. It allows natural justice to unfold. Truth is like the sun. It cannot be hidden forever. Lies collapse under their own weight. When we resist the urge to manipulate outcomes and instead trust the natural process, we avoid unnecessary suffering. The Buddha often spoke of the impermanence of all things. Both suffering and deception fade with time. The less we interfere, the more easily the truth emerges on its own. 5. It elevates us spiritually. True wisdom is not in controlling others but in mastering ourselves. Rising above betrayal means stepping into a higher state of being. In Buddhist practice, this aligns with the cultivation of equanimity, remaining balanced and undisturbed in the face of life's challenges. When we choose peace over reaction, we transcend the immediate turmoil and cultivate spiritual growth. 6. It strengthens our resilience. Choosing to do nothing does not mean we ignore wrongdoing or accept injustice. Instead, it means we redirect our energy toward what truly matters, our own well-being and inner strength. In Buddhist meditation, practitioners learn to sit with discomfort rather than react impulsively to it. This practice builds resilience, teaching us that we are not defined by external events but by our ability to remain steadfast in the face of adversity. 7. It shifts our focus from control to acceptance. Often, our suffering comes from the desire to control outcomes, perceptions, and others' actions. By doing nothing, we embrace acceptance, allowing reality to unfold as it must. This is not passive resignation, but a conscious choice to flow with life rather than against it. It is the wisdom of knowing that some battles are best won through stillness. In the end, doing nothing is not an act of weakness, but one of profound inner strength. It is a choice that requires faith in truth, confidence in justice, and mastery over our own emotions. The greatest battles are not always fought with action, but with patience, wisdom, and the quiet power of non-resistance. Chapter 4. 4.1 The Illusion of Control. One of the deepest sources of pain is expecting others to behave as we would. We assume that because we are honest, others will be honest. Because we are loyal, others will be loyal. But people act according to their own nature, not ours. A scorpion stings not because it hates you but because it is in its nature. A fire burns not out of malice but because it is fire. Similarly, those who deceive or betray do so because of their own weaknesses, not because of our failures. When we understand this, we stop taking betrayal personally. It loses its power over us. 4.2 The Trap of Expectation. Attachment to specific expectations creates suffering. We construct illusions about how people should act based on our own principles. But life does not operate according to our personal beliefs. The more tightly we cling to these expectations, the more we struggle when reality does not conform. Letting go of the illusion of control means accepting life as it is, rather than how we wish it to be. 4.3 Freedom in Acceptance. The moment we recognize that others act according to their own conditioning, past experiences, and fears, we release the burden of trying to control them. True peace comes not from forcing others to meet our standards but from cultivating resilience and understanding within ourselves. Acceptance does not mean condoning harmful behavior, but it allows us to disengage from the unnecessary suffering caused by unmet expectations. 4.4 The Power of Detachment. Buddhism teaches that attachment to impermanent things, including control over others, leads to suffering. The way forward is to practice non-attachment, When we detach from the need to dictate others' actions, we liberate ourselves from frustration and disappointment. We learn to respond with wisdom rather than react with pain. 4.5 Transforming pain into growth. Pain caused by betrayal or deception can be an opportunity for self-reflection. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this to me?" we can ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Every challenge offers a chance to cultivate patience, resilience, and deeper wisdom. When we stop personalizing others' actions, we gain the freedom to focus on our own spiritual path. 4.6 Cultivating inner strength. Rather than seeking control over external circumstances, we turn inward to develop our own character. By deepening our practice of mindfulness, self-awareness, and compassion, we create a foundation of inner peace that remains unshaken by the unpredictability of others. This is true empowerment, not bending the world to our will, but finding stability within ourselves. When we no longer take others' actions as a reflection of our worth, we become unshackled from resentment and disappointment. In this liberation, we discover an unshakable peace that arises from wisdom rather than illusion. Chapter 5: The Power of Forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean excusing the wrong or forgetting the pain. It means freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Resentment does not harm the wrongdoer, it only traps us in suffering. When we forgive, we release ourselves from emotional bondage, reclaiming our peace. True forgiveness is an act of strength. It does not mean condoning harm but choosing not to let it control us. The past cannot be changed, but our response to it can. By letting go, we break free from pain and find clarity. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment. When we cling to past wounds, we relive them. Through mindfulness, we observe emotions without being consumed by them. Forgiveness is not about others, it is about our own liberation. Compassion helps us see that people act from their own suffering and ignorance. We do not have to hold on to their actions. In choosing forgiveness, we choose freedom, wisdom, and lasting inner peace. Chapter 6. True power lies in freedom. If someone cheats or hurts you, remember, your power is not in revenge but in freedom. The ability to walk away without carrying pain is true strength. Let go of the need to prove yourself. Truth will reveal itself. Those who matter will see it without your intervention. Release the desire for justice. Karma is always at work. The universe balances itself. Your energy is better spent on growth. Let go of pain. The past does not define you. Clinging to suffering only keeps you bound to it. Free yourself from anger. Forgiveness is the gateway to peace. It is not about them. It is about reclaiming your heart. By choosing peace over conflict, silence over drama, and detachment over resentment, you transcend the pain of betrayal. You rise above it, stepping into a life where no one, not even those who hurt you, can take away your inner peace. True power lies in knowing when to let go. When you detach from the pain, the weight lifts, the storm passes, the dust settles, and there you remain, whole, untouched, and free. If you found this wisdom valuable, share it with someone who needs it. True strength is not in fighting every battle but in understanding which battles are worth your energy.